Shonen Jump movies almost always offer their target audience a good time at the theater, but rarely a truly great one. Those with anime original stories, disconnected as they are from the main plot planned by the original mangaka, tend to be constrained in all the same ways as a filler episode. Unable to advance any of the main characters through their arcs in any meaningful way or make any significant impact on that main plot, the best that most Naruto or Bleach or My Hero Academia or Dragon Ball movies can do to justify their existence is deliver some cool fights outside the scope of what the main story accomplished, and maybe create some memorable side characters if they're lucky. If the original creator gets involved in planning the film, like Eiichiro Oda and Akira Toriyama do from time to time, the end product may end up being a bit more substantial than that, but even then, those films rarely reach the level of essential viewing. They're still filler, just premium grade filler, top shelf Witcher 3 tier side content. Jujutsu Kaisen 0 finds itself in a very lucky position then. The film is based on Tokyo Metropolitan Curse Technical School, a 4-part mini-manga that Gege Akutami wrote for the monthly Jump Giga magazine in spring of 2017, the unexpected success of which directly led them to develop the full Jujutsu Kaisen series and start publishing it the following year, at which point the name of the manga was changed to Jujutsu Kaisen 0. As such, this movie has two huge things going for it over other Jump movies right out of the gate. First, it reaches a satisfying, conclusive conclusion in a tight 200 pages / hour and 40 minutes, and secondly, its character development and world building serve as a foundation for everything that the main story does, so it actually matters to that story. Crazy! You don't need to have read or watched Jujutsu Kaisen 0 to understand Yuji Itadori's character arc or the things that happen around him, but doing so does help you better understand Satoru Gojo, Maki Zenin, Toge Inumaki, and most importantly, Panda. Plus a few other subtle things about the background lore details of the Jujutsu world. The story follows the second-year students in their first year as they learn to fight curses and come together as a group with a certain other member we'll talk about later, adding additional emotional weight to everything they do together in the main story. And on the darker side of things, the film and prequel manga also provide key insights that help to solve the puzzle of the series' central villain, the menacing monk Suguru Geto, who uses the film's events as essentially a dry run for one of the craziest and biggest fights I've ever read in any manga ever, which I will not spoil here, just as I promise not to spoil any major plot turns in this movie, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And even if you don't, you've probably seen the show and its action scenes, so just imagine those award-winningly cool things, only even bigger and cooler, and then you've got what happens in this movie, and now double what you just imagined, and you've got a good idea of what the upcoming arc is going to be like. Of course, instead of the show or the manga, what I should be talking about right now is the movie that you clicked on this for and the reasons that you might potentially want to watch it, and I will do that, but first I gotta throw some sponsor stuff at your face. Life as a professional basement dweller has equipped me with a wide array of tools for discussing and analyzing media, but not so much in the general life skills department. Cooking, for instance, is a difficult and time-consuming thing, and my inability to do it makes eating healthy a real challenge. Lucky for me, today's sponsor, HelloFresh, takes the confusion out of cooking by sending pre-planned meal kits with farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients straight to my door every week, which I then get to have fun making with Yazzie like a big edible gunpla kit. With HelloFresh, you no longer have to worry about picking the right ingredients from the aisle or picking an anime t-shirt that won't get you weird looks at checkout. All you gotta do is take your little bag of food, measured out exactly as you need it, follow a few simple instructions, and bam! You'll have a meal that you'll be proud to say you made, and even prouder to actually eat in as little as 20 minutes with one of their quick and easy recipes, and with no wasted ingredients or pesky extra calories to worry about. Though, if you do want to enjoy some leftovers, you can always bump up your weekly serving size and get a little bit more out of your meal kit. You also have plenty of choice when it comes to what you eat each week, with their huge, rotating menu of family-friendly, fit and wholesome, pescatarian or vegetarian options. But don't just take my word for it. To see for yourself how HelloFresh can help you eat better and cheaper, just use my link or go to HelloFresh.com and use code POGBasement16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes, plus free shipping. In case you missed it, that's POGBasement16. One more time, POGBasement16. Okay, you got me. I just like saying POGBasement16. POGBasement16. Now that's out of my system. More about the movie that you clicked on this for. The main character of that movie is one Yuta Okotsu, a seemingly ordinary high school student who, despite also ending up at Jujutsu High under a very tenuous stay of execution, is the polar opposite of main series protagonist Yuji Itadori in just about every respect. Where Yuji is open and outgoing, Yuta is shy and reserved. Where Yuji exudes an aura of inner strength and confidence, Yuta is as weak and fragile as they come. Where Yuji makes friends everywhere he goes, Yuta mostly attracts bullies. And where the terrifying almighty cursed spirit that's bound to Yuji doesn't give one iota of a fuck if his host gets hurt, the terrifying almighty cursed spirit bound to Yuta will murder the ever-loving fuck out of you if you so much as think about touching her mans. Her name is Rika, and despite getting isekai'd shortly after proposing to an 8-year-old Yuta in a sandbox, she is fully committed to staying with him for the rest of his life, and making sure that life is as long as possible whether he likes it or not. Like, at one point he tried to kill himself to stop her from murdering all of his classmates, so she turned his switchblade into a pretzel. Yuta is not so thrilled about this whole situation, if the attempted Sudoku didn't clue you in. He's a sensitive, caring boy who doesn't want to see anyone get hurt no matter what, and he's seen so many people get so hurt. The higher-ups at Jujutsu Academy all believe that he and his special grade curse girlfriend are a threat to the world and want him gone as soon as possible, and he pretty much fully agrees with them, actually, but Satoru Gojo sees potential in the boy and also wants to give him a shot at a slightly less shitty childhood, so it's off to Jujutsu High he goes, where he joins the class of Maki, Inumaki, and Panda. At first, Yuta is intimidated and baffled by these classmates because they are kind of intimidating and baffling people, and the panda. But slowly he gets to know them, learns to rely on and open up to them, and in turn, they help him learn to recognize and cultivate his own inner strength. All told, it's very by-the-book shonen battle type stuff, but this is Jujutsu Kaisen, so it's incredibly well-told by-the-book shonen battle type stuff, with every action scene pushing the characters an essential step forward in their journeys, while still delivering on the, action side of the equation, and all the downtime used very efficiently to add emotional weight to that development and action, while delivering quality comedy at every turn. And if you've seen the show, then you already know that under the direction of Korean wunderkind Sung-Hoo Park, both sides of this story absolutely shine. The comedic elements are buoyed by bouncy, expressive animation. The emotional elements make use of a modern, high-fidelity, Shinkai-esque style to create a grounded feeling of drama, and the fights, as always, hit like a tsundere who you just overheard complimenting you and then fell through the wall of the hot spring she was in. And by golly, there sure are a lot of them fights, too. Big villain Suguru Geto's big villain plan involves a giant war on 2 different fronts in Shinjuku and Kyoto between all of the Jujutsu High students and teachers and 2,000 cursed spirits, plus a few evil curse users to spice things up. Also, that big epic war just happens to happen on December 24th, so if you're one of those, this is technically a Christmas movie type people, now you got some new ammo for your pointless arguments. thanks to this war story, in between the 3 big brawls that lead to Yuta's self-actualization and actually affect the story, we get to see a lot of little snippets of extremely cool people using their extremely cool anime powers in extremely cool ways. Aoi Todo does the thing, Satoru Gojo does all the things, Nanami does exactly 7/10 of the thing. The choreography is at once elegant and brutal in this film. Fists and feet and cursed energy whirring into a blur before hitting home with devastating speed and precision in immaculately posed impact shots. Every time a big anime laser goes off, it goes the fuck off, and takes off at least half a building in the process. And of course, all that excellently animated action syncs up real nice with all the music, which is also, of course, fantastic. A beautiful blend of orchestral pieces and more contemporary genre-bending tracks that gives the movie, as it did the anime series, a distinctly off-kilter, vaguely eerie identity. And speaking of eerie, the cursed spirits in this movie might just be the creepiest this anime has given us so far. Their bizarre, otherworldly designs are animated with an unnerving, shaky fluidity that makes it look almost like someone rotoscoped footage of some mysterious creature in another dimension or on some dark, evil planet in the depths of space. They're frightening, animalistic, animated creations with just a touch of twisted humanity in their movements and designs that makes them quite unlike any animal you've ever laid eyes on. Good monsters are hard to make, and this movie has a ton of them. That said, though, lots of cool fights where all the fan-favorite characters get to do a thing to a big bad monster is, as I said at the top of this video, kind of the bare minimum one expects from a shonen battle movie. No matter how expertly those action aspects are polished, by themselves, all they'll ultimately determine is how much a brand mega fan will potentially love the movie, regardless of any of its other qualities. And those people don't really need my recommendation to see this thing. I mean, they're just here to validate the choice they already made. So the questions I still have left to answer in this video are, 1, how gratifying is this movie for more casual fans who are simply invested in, but not obsessed with, Jujutsu Kaisen's characters and story? And 2, how accessible is the movie as an onboarding ramp for new fans? Can you go in knowing nothing about this world or these characters and still have a good time with this movie? Considering that the prequel manga it's based on was the only piece of Jujutsu Kaisen media out there when it became a surprise hit, I think it's safe to answer that second question with a yes. The film touches on many concepts the main series explores in much greater depth, such as the corruption and infighting in Jujutsu High School's administration, the conflict between the community's elders and the young upstart Gojo, and the more violent factions of independent sorcerers who oppose their orthodoxy more violently. But you don't really need to know any of the details behind those politics to appreciate the narrative tension that they create in the movie. It's easy enough to understand that Gojo is in a 3-way struggle to protect Yuta from a hostile outside world, miserly old men who fear they can't control him, and his own self-doubt without fully understanding everything about how that greater world works. Likewise, you don't need to have read the flashback arc about how and why Suguru Geto left Jujutsu High to get what drives him as a villain here, or even to feel the strength of his now strained friendship with Gojo through how they talk to each other and how personal the mind games they play with each other get. That knowledge does help one appreciate the subtleties of certain conversations and scenes in the movie, but by the same token, if you were to watch this movie first and then move on to the show, that too would cast many of the TV anime's events and interactions in a new light. The TV anime's Suguru Geto becomes an entirely different kind of enigmatic mystery villain if you're already familiar with this version of him. Gojo's concern for Yuji takes on new weight when you know that this is the second kid he's gone through this with. When the second years show up in the story, if you're familiar with the events of Jujutsu Kaisen 0, it's like meeting old friends instead of intimidating new faces, and in light of their relationship with Yuta, the speed with which they warm up to Yuji makes a lot more sense. Plus, when you already know what makes Maki and Inumaki tick, the early fights that first help us get to know them instantly become a lot more interesting, like you're rereading the story and picking up on new details. Of course, the flip side of this is that when you watch the movie after having seen the show or read the manga, you understand these characters better than their new classmate and your perspective character Yuta does. There's a sense of dramatic irony then in seeing him push buttons he didn't know were there and misconstrue things that they say to him because he doesn't know the full context they're saying them in, which makes those interactions just as interesting as they'd be if you were getting to know these characters alongside Yuta, but in a completely different way. And the really brilliant thing about all of this is, because all of the things that we learn about these three in Jujutsu Kaisen 0 are framed in the context of how they relate to Yuta, and Yuta is such a fundamentally different person from Yuji, both the movie and the TV anime, both the manga and the prequel manga, feel like they're teaching you something fresh and new about these characters, no matter which order you experience their stories in. Both stand alone, yet both truly complement each other. Looking at the movie and TV anime side by side really highlights just how strong Akutami's character writing is. His side characters can easily take on the role of main characters without missing a beat. That is not to say the film is perfect. If there's one place its story really falls flat, it's gotta be in the romance between Rika and Yuta. Their relationship is definitely interesting, at least in the present, where it makes a great basis for tension, intrigue, and drama, but their past is rather simple and cliche, which makes the Doki Doki end of the movie's emotional spectrum feel a bit more muted. Before her death, we only really learned two things about who Rika was as a person. The first being that she really loved Yuta so much, all the much, it's pretty much her whole personality, which makes sense. Curses have one-track minds, but it's not exactly that their love feels unearned, because the second thing we learn is that they were both sick kids in the same hospital who became each other's first real friends. Then she died right at the height of that simple, stupid puppy love. It totally makes sense why these feelings exist in these characters, but only in an intellectual sense. We, as an audience, never actually experience any of their chemistry, and thus, when the film tries to tug at the old heartstrings with a bloom-heavy, backlit, sunset Shinkai blowout moment between them at its emotional climax, it kinda rings hollow. Rika is simply better at being a menacing monster whose cute affectations only make her even creepier than she is at being an actual character we actually care about. And that's frustrating, because there is actually some subtle, solid chemistry between Yuta and a certain other sorcerer that could have built up to a strong emotional climax, but of course Akutami had to save exploring that for when these characters return in the main series. That's the problem with prequels. No matter how tight and twisty-turny you make them, they always have to serve as a setup for something that's designed to overshadow them. For every story thread you tie off in a satisfying way, two better ones have to be left dangling. However, when that greater story is planned with that prequel in mind, as Jujutsu Kaisen was, that setup can eventually result in some of the rawest, most badass shit that I personally have ever read in any manga ever, which, without spoiling nothing, that's what this one does. Like, holy shit, I can't even, it would ruin so much to tell you anything about why, but trust me, just trust me, there will come a point in the future of Jujutsu Kaisen broadcasts where anyone who's seen or read Jujutsu Kaisen 0 will involuntarily shout out loud and possibly also shit their pants. And even if you never move on to the main story after seeing this one, Yuta's struggle to become a stronger person, the twisty-turny plot that stands in his way, and the friends he makes along the way are enough in and of themselves to make that a fulfilling viewing experience. If you love Jujutsu Kaisen, I don't have to tell you to watch this. If you merely like it, this film will help you like it a lot more. And if you've never seen the show, you will still be able to fully enjoy this movie with your friends who have, or even by yourself. So, should you watch Jujutsu Kaisen 0? If you're remotely interested in the property, or it's just been a minute since you last saw and heard some sick Sakuga on a big screen with surround sound, I'd say hell yeah. The only reason I can think of to avoid it is if you already know you don't like the show, or shonen stuff in general, I guess, since Jujutsu Kaisen kinda is peak shonen. If you haven't heard me make that case yet, I've got another video you should check out after this one, or if you've seen that already and want to look at something else that's cursed, I just put out a roast of an ancient artifact from the dark ages of anime known as Maburaho, aka the Harry Potter eugenics harem, that is very funny, and I highly recommend watching that. Or, if it's after March 18th, you could just go watch the movie. I leave the choice to you. I'm Geoff Thew, purveyor of cursed knowledge, signing out from This Is What Gabumon Looks Like Naked. You're welcome.